The most craziest things in history. And when I say crazy, I mean really, really crazy. One wrong move, and these people would be dead. On September 29, 1833, King Ferdinand VII of Spain kicked the bucket. After a long and kind of tumultuous reign, which included a brief stint as an unhinged emperor during the Napoleonic era, the aging monarch had a lot of thoughts about how his death would go down in history. Like any good narcissist, he wanted to be remembered as a great and powerful ruler. But his biggest priority was preserving the male preference system of succession, which had kept the Spanish throne in the hands of his family for centuries. That's why, on his deathbed, surrounded by doctors and courtiers, he scribbled his final wishes on a piece of paper. It was called the Pragmatic Sanction. It named his 5-year-old daughter, Princess Isabella, his heir. Now, to understand just how explosive this document was, you need to know a little bit about Spain's succession rules. Historically, the Spanish crown passed from father to son, from husband to wife, and then to other male relatives. The females in the family tree could inherit if there were no males, but otherwise they were pretty much out of luck. But Ferdinand had no sons. His only surviving children were 2 daughters, and he had already sent one of them off to marry a German prince. So his choice came down to his second daughter, the 5-year-old Isabella. But it wasn't just about picking a successor. It was about sending a message. Ferdinand was essentially saying, "Don't mess with my dynasty." He was putting his foot down against those who might want to see a different family on the throne, but he also knew he was setting a trap. Because by naming his young daughter as his heir, he was opening the door to a whole host of complications, including potential foreign intervention, civil wars, and God knows what else. Basically, he was handing the next generation a big, fat mess to clean up, like any good parent would. But in the annals of royal screw-ups, this one takes the cake. Now let's meet the man who was supposed to be next in line, Ferdinand's younger brother, Don Carlos. Ever since their parents died, Carlos had been next in line to the throne. But now, thanks to his brother's death and that stupid piece of paper, he was out. Don Carlos was livid. And when I say livid, I mean straight up homicidally enraged. He felt he was the true king of Spain, and his claim was backed by both God and tradition. Plus, he was older, experienced, and frankly, way better at playing the political game than his little sister. So what was he supposed to do? Sit back and watch as some random 5-year-old girl took the throne? Not a chance. Don Carlos was ready to fight, and boy, did he fight. But that's a story for another time, because it turns out Ferdinand had not just made a political bomb, he'd blown the lid off a pressure cooker of social, religious, and political tensions in Spain. And now the country is about to blow. The news of Ferdinand's death and his bizarre decision to make his daughter Isabella the heir triggered a chain reaction across Spain. From the palaces of Madrid to the mountain villages of the Basque country, everyone was talking about the same thing. What did this mean for them? What would happen next? The first shock quickly gave way to a fierce power struggle between 2 factions, the Carlists and the Cristinos. And things were about to get messy. The Carlists were the supporters of Don Carlos. They rallied around his claim to the throne, seeing him as the true heir to Ferdinand. These guys were mostly conservative landowners, the clergy, and anyone who wanted to keep Spain as it was. They were staunch Catholics who believed the church should have a big say in politics, and they weren't afraid to use violence to achieve their goals. On the other side were the Cristinos, the supporters of Queen Isabella and her mother, Maria Cristina, who acted as Isabella's regent. These folks were mostly liberals and progressives, people who wanted to modernize Spain and give more power to the people. They saw Isabella as a symbol of a new Spain, a country that was ready to embrace change and move forward. The stage was set for an epic showdown between tradition and modernity, religion and liberalism, and it would be played out on the battlefields of Spain. But here's the thing. The Spanish throne had been a hot potato for centuries, and everyone wanted a piece. The competing claims to the throne were just the tip of the iceberg. There was also a power struggle between 2 groups vying to shape the destiny of Spain. And these groups weren't just some faceless political parties. They were real, breathing entities with passionate followers, deep pockets, and a willingness to fight for what they believed in. Each group had its own agenda, its own resources, and its own vision for the future of Spain. But they were united by one common goal: seizing power and holding on to it for dear life. Let's take a closer look at these two powerhouses and see how they maneuvered, plotted, and schemed to claim the throne for their chosen monarch. The first group, the Carlists, was led by none other than Don Carlos himself. Carlos was a charismatic leader, a skilled politician, and a brilliant strategist. He knew how to win over the hearts and minds of the people, and he wasn't afraid to use his power to crush his enemies. But he wasn't the only player in the game. The Carlists had a secret weapon, an army of loyal supporters who were willing to fight to the death for their chosen king. These men were fiercely independent, but they were bound together by their shared beliefs and their unwavering loyalty to Carlos. Together, they formed a formidable force that would challenge the Queen's claim to the throne. The other group, the Cristinos, was led by the indomitable Maria Cristina, the Queen's mother. Maria Cristina was a shrewd politician and a cunning strategist. She knew how to navigate the treacherous waters of the Spanish court, and she wasn't afraid to use her power to protect her daughter's claim to the throne. But she wasn't working alone. The Cristinos had their own secret weapon, an alliance with the military. Maria Cristina had spent years cultivating relationships with key members of the armed forces, and she knew she could count on their loyalty in the fight for the crown. With the military on their side, the Cristinos were ready to defend Isabella's claim to the throne with every fiber of their being. The power struggle between the Carlists and the Cristinos was intense, and both sides were willing to do whatever it took to win. The Carlists launched a series of daring attacks aimed at destabilizing the Queen's rule. Meanwhile, the Cristinos fought back with equal ferocity, determined to protect their chosen monarch. As the conflict escalated, the streets of Spain became a battleground, and the country teetered on the brink of chaos. The fate of Spain hung in the balance, and neither side was willing to back down. Who would emerge victorious? Would the Carlists restore traditional values and bring stability to Spain, or would the Cristinos usher in a new era of liberalism and reform? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the war for the Spanish throne was just beginning. For more historical tales, don't forget to hit subscribe and like the video. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching.